Hi, my name is Arthur Vinci, and I'm a writer, director, and producer, and this is another episode of Worth Another Look, where I talk about films that, for one reason or another, aren't as well known as I think they should be, or perhaps were well known at some point, but aren't talked about that much anymore. Today, I am going to talk about Morvern, Callar, directed by Lynn Ramsey, with a stunning performance by Samantha Morton. So Morvern Callar came out in 2002. She had already done Ratcatcher, but it was before she had done We Need to Talk About Kevin. She's an amazing filmmaker. I feel like her ability to convey things through visuals and without a lot of dialogue, and her sense of composition is really something to behold. It starts out in a small town in Scotland. The title character has come home around Christmas time to find that her boyfriend has killed himself and doesn't really explain anything about why he did it, but the one thing he asks her to do is to submit his novel for posthumous publication. You know, she goes into a state of shock. She goes to a party, she visits her best friend, she comes back, finds her boyfriend still there, and still doesn't know what to do. And so again, there's not any dialogue to kind of explain what her thought process is behind this. She decides to submit her boyfriend's novel, but using her name instead of his. It feels like something that is both fantastic in the sense that it seems so unlikely, but at the same time feels like it's something that could easily happen. Ramsey and Morton don't try to psychoanalyze the character. They show you what's going on in Morton's head, but almost entirely through visuals. There's very little dialogue in this whole movie. You're often one step behind the character in figuring out what she's about and why she's doing what she's doing, but if you pay close enough attention to what's going on, you're going to understand her at least a little bit. There's also some interesting gender commentary going on here. Morton's character, Morvern Callar, tends to lie about everything, but whenever she tells the truth, no one believes her. Even critics who were paying close attention to the film didn't quite catch on to, or at least I never read a review about it. The film did really well when it came out. It had a lot of glowing reviews. I think maybe the reason why it's not mentioned as the classic film it should be is because of when it came out. It was sort of just before the streaming era. Lots of issues with the streaming era, and maybe we'll get into that in a different episode. But one of the issues is that I think it's left a sort of knowledge gap in the consciousness of many filmmakers. So I think that there was this sort of period where, all these indie video rental stores, which, who had staff that would recommend a movie like this, they got wiped out by Blockbuster. Then Blockbuster got wiped out by, behemoths like Netflix and Amazon. Each time these kinds of shifts happen, films that come out at sort of the wrong time maybe don't get the traction with audiences that they should. It's hard to know whether a film like this would have ever gotten as big as, say, We Need to Talk About Kevin. Although, Samantha Morton at the time was an A-list actor. So as a filmmaker, what can you swipe from this movie? It is shot just gorgeously and edited just gorgeously. There is great use of handheld camera work. It alternates between handheld camera work and very long, sort of steady takes. And that mix is done very well. There's a lot conveyed through visuals alone and not through dialogue. I love dialogue, but if you can tell your story without relying on it, that's sometimes even better or even stronger. It will leave a sort of deeper impression in people's minds. It has a lot of nudity, but it never feels exploitative. The fact that Ramsey is a woman and directing another woman has something to do with that. It shows you how you can direct sometimes very explicit scenes without them feeling cheap or exploitative. Another thing that is worth taking from this is, again, great use of sound design. Oftentimes the music and the sound work to convey a lot of information that would normally be carried by the dialogue. Samantha Morton's character is moving through the movie, oftentimes she's alone. Her interaction with the landscape around her is what's conveying the character, moving the story forward. So those are all things that you can look at and pay attention to. I would be curious to know what you think of this film. Feel free to comment. Thank you.